In this video, we will analyse the writing paper of the 2023 New South Wales Selective High School Placement Test. Please be advised that an online version of the writing component for the 2023 test can be found on the New South Wales Government Education website in the Writing section of the Student Resources Hub. This video is provided to you by EduKingdom and aims to analyse the 2023 writing task and provide a guide for students sitting the selective exam in the future. So the writing test in the selective exam is the fourth and final test component. It is 30 minutes long and students will be assessed on the quality of their thought, evidence of engagement with the stimulus or task provided, the organisation of their ideas and how their content sits on the page, as well as their control of language, which is looking at their grammar, punctuation, spelling, vocabulary, as well as their utilisation of figurative language techniques. Let's now look at the 2023 task, break it down and see where students performed well and where we think improvements could be made. This was the task in a similar version or a slightly modified version of the task that was provided to the 2023 students. Let's read it now and see what we can do with it. Read the task below and write your answer on a separate answer sheet. A new superhero. A movie company is holding a competition to win $1,000. To enter, you have to send an email to the company giving original ideas for a new superhero character for a blockbuster movie, graphic novel, or book. Write your email. In your email, you could describe what the character looks like, explain how they use their superpower, say why this character would be popular, and at the bottom we've got a note that says you do not need to include email formatting such as to, subject, etc. in your response. So thinking back to the 2021 writing selective activity, which was in fact a newspaper article, and thinking back to last year's 2022 activity, which was a diary entry, this year we've been asked to write an email. And although many students may be comfortable and quite competent in writing an informal or casual email to their friends or teachers, it's important to realize that not many students have experience with writing an email in a formal tone and in a respectful manner. In a formal and competent manner was what we needed to write our email in for this particular task. Let's break down the different components now. So we've got the title here, a new superhero. A new superhero means, the word new there, we must be original in our idea. It has to be a superhero that we have never heard of before and whose powers, although maybe similar to a current superhero, need to somehow be distinctive from something that already exists. So that means when we give our name, when we choose our name for the superhero, it cannot be Iron Man or Superwoman or Superman anymore. It needs to be a creative name that your student has thought of by themselves. So we've got here a movie company. When we're writing an email, we always have a sender and we have a recipient. So we have a sender, which will be us as writers, and a recipient. Our recipient in this case is the movie company. Now, whether you choose to write to a current existing movie company, such as Warner Bros. Or DreamWorks, you could choose to do that, or you could choose to create a movie company of your own. So just a simple name, I might call my movie company EK Movie Inc. So that might be EduKingdom Movie Incorporated. So this might be the name of my movie company. And this company is holding a competition to win $1,000. Somewhere in your email, you need to address this $1,000. Please don't overlook it and assume that the marker already knows what you're talking about. You need to be clear as to why you're writing this email, and you are writing this email to enter the competition and win that $1,000. So to enter, you have to send an email to the company giving original ideas for a new superhero character for a blockbuster movie, graphic novel, or book. That means that the 30 minutes that you've been given to complete this task, you need to somewhere in that 30 minutes comment on whether your superhero character is most suitable for a movie, a novel, or a book. You must pick at least one of them. If it fits into more than one, that's great, but you do need to be specific and say that my superhero is perfect for your next movie, for your next novel, and you need to spend some time saying why. So let's move down to the dot points here. When thinking of structure, it's important to realize that our basic and safest structure to use when writing in Selective is to have 3 main body paragraphs and use our body paragraphs to explore a different point in each one. With these 3 dot points, I think it is in your students' best interests to really spend time with each dot point in each body paragraph. So describing what your superhero looks like, describing what your character looks like might be their first paragraph. We're looking for about a good amount of sentences, anywhere from 4 to 8 sentences in this paragraph, describing what their character looks like. Our second paragraph might be explaining how they use their superpower. So how do they use this superpower? Do they lose their superpower at some point in the day? Or what is their day job like? Are they a superhero in the entire journey from day to night? Or do they only get their superpowers at night? So how do they use this power? What does this character look like in our first paragraph? And our final paragraph, saying why this character would be popular. Who's the target audience? Who is the target audience for your superhero? Are kids and adults going to like your superhero? Are only children going to like it? So be specific in saying who your target audience is and why your superhero would be popular. You need to make sure that you remember that this is a competition. And if it's a competition and there's a prize involved, you need to be better than every other entry. And that means that you need to say why your superhero is most worthy of this $1,000 and most worthy of the chance to enter this movie, novel, or book. At the bottom there, it does say you do not need to include email formatting such as to, subject, etc. in your response, but please don't fall into the trap of assuming that that means that you don't need to say to EK Movie Inc. because you need to make sure that you address your email to someone. This to here refers to if you open up your laptop and open up an email service, it will say to name here and from name here. They don't want you to do the email formatting that you would find on a laptop, but it is essential to remember that you do need to address your email to a clear movie company. You do need to say to EK Movie Incorporated, to Marvel Studios, or to DreamWorks Animations. You need to be very clear and start your email off with that one line there in your response. So let's look at some more things to consider when planning our response. There were about 6 things that we recognize that you do need to spend time on in your planning. Let's look at the text type, the character, the tone of our email, the vocabulary and the unique superhero vocabulary we might use in this task, as well as language features, so that's our similes, metaphors, and all the other different types of figurative language. Think about your hyperbole, your oxymoron, and your alliteration and personification as well. And finally, we'll take a quick look at timing and length. We'll talk about how much you might be expected to write and how much most students were able to write. So analyzing the email text type. As we talked about, the email text type is something new and quite unfamiliar to most students. This means that a lot of students might have been put in a position where this might have been the first email they were writing in a formal, respectful tone, which is challenging. At EduKingdom, we want to make sure that you've seen all of the different text types. So let's break down this email and what we had to do. When we write an email, there's actually, apart from the tone, which I will write up here, there's more than just the tone that we need to modify. Our vocabulary will be different as well to the language we might use on the day-to-day. Our structure will be different. So although we do have the 3-paragraph structure, we also have the signing on and the signing off at the bottom that's unique to an email as well. And with this particular email, with the whole concept of creating your own superhero, as well as appealing to the movie company and on why you should win the prize, this is a somewhat of a combination between a persuasive response and a creative response. So you needed to put these two ideas together. You needed to recognize that there were creative aspects involved in this text by when you had to create your own superhero, as well as when you wrote in a fictitious manner. Now, if we look at the persuasive responses section, you are indeed appealing to the movie company of your choice and trying to persuade them as to why you should win the prize and as to why you should get the opportunity to make your story into a book or film. So you needed to combine these two together and write a creative appeal to the movie company. Perfect. The next thing to consider is your character. So the 3 paragraphs that you're actually writing about, your character, building your superhero. What makes your character a superhero and what makes them super? So you need to be very clear in describing what separates them from your average man or woman. So why are they super, and why should this movie company choose your superhero out of all of the different entries they've been handed in? So be clear about your superhero's good intentions behind their actions and why they are above the rest. Choose their superpower. So you have a bunch of different options to choose from. You could have super strength. You could have telekinesis, as well as mind reading, weather powers, or ice or fire powers. And these are just a few that you could have mentioned. But you do need to choose a very specific superpower and give your hero a super name. They need to have a really interesting name and an original name that we haven't seen before. So no Iron Woman, Iron Man, no Superman or Superwoman. And if the powers are similar, that's all right, but the name needs to be an original name. Now let's take a look at comparing stronger responses with their weaker counterparts. So we'll look at the same dot point, and we'll just see how different responses handled concepts differently, and that's ultimately why they would have had differences in marks. So let's look at the first one. Addressing the movie studio directly was something that stronger responses did. You know how at the beginning we talked about to Edukingdom Movie Incorporated. That's a very specific and clear addressing of the movie studio that we're writing to. Weaker responses, on the other hand, failed to address a clear recipient or might have assumed that the marker already knows the recipient as a movie company. Remember, there's no assumptions in writing. We need to be very clear and say, to movie company, comma, leave a line and start our first paragraph. The second dot point here is talking about the tone that the different responses used. Stronger responses used a formal and respectful tone when addressing their recipient. Weaker responses, on the other hand, used a casual, informal tone that we might use with our friends or family. Stronger responses also employed language features, metaphors, similes, and idioms to make their email more appealing. This ties into the persuasive aspect of this writing task. We do need to make our writing a bit flowery and a bit interesting to read because we want to be picked out of all of the different entries. Weaker responses accordingly used simple, basic language and remained to very limited language in their entire response. Stronger responses explained and discussed why their idea deserves the $1,000 reward. Weaker responses may have forgotten to mention this reward entirely or only very briefly touched upon it. Furthermore, stronger responses discussed which one of these media types their superhero would have been a part of. Is your superhero going to be in a movie? Are they going to be in a novel or a book, a comic book? What type of medium is going to be used to show the world your superhero? Weaker responses may have forgot to do this. They may have forgotten the whole aspect of marketability that we're looking at. Remember that your movie company does want to sell your superhero. It's not just about having the most interesting superhero, it's about having the most popular and most marketable superhero that will eventually make them the most money. They're a company, they're a business, so they do have a business mindset and they do want a popular superhero. Finally, our final dot point, providing a strong characterization of their superhero is what stronger responses were able to do. They would have had a very clear description of your character's strengths and weaknesses, because remember that weaknesses, although they're not the best sides of your characters, it's what makes your character interesting. So weaker responses may have forgotten to talk about character weaknesses. They may have built a very uninteresting or undescriptive character profile for their superhero. In your planning stage, so in the around 5 or so minutes that you would have allocated to planning before putting your pen to the paper, you need to create a vocabulary bank, and you need to get into the habit of creating a vocab bank before you start. For this particular theme, we've got the unique superhero theme that you might not have seen before, but for this story, you need to start up a vocab bank with unique superhero themed words. So what is their superpower? Be very specific in the language you use. Don't just say ice powers, be more specific than that. How are their ice powers? What's the origin story of their ice powers? So words like origin story might be a unique superhero themed word that you would write down in your plan. Moreover, we have the villain of the story. Who is the villain? Who is the main antagonist and enemy of your hero in this story? So again, villain is a very superhero themed word. Moreover, do they have a disguise during the day? How does your character look in the day compared to at night? So do they only run in the nighttime, or do they work throughout the entire day? Is being a superhero their full-time job, or just something they do after work? Let's look again at, do they have a sidekick? So how big of a superhero is your superhero? Do they need a sidekick, or are they a one-man job? And what words would you describe your superhero as? Are they brave, mutant, strong, perseverant, admirable, kind? And what makes them all of these different words? Moreover, you really do need to spend some time looking at costumes, hideouts, their strengths and weaknesses. Both are important in developing your character. Remember, this email is not trying to spend the entire email writing about your character. It's more putting your best foot forward and saying why your superhero is better than the rest, and why you should win the $1,000, and why you should get the opportunity to have your story made into a film or book. So don't get too caught up on building your character, but make sure your character is interesting enough to win the competition. Now let's take a look at enhancing our writing, especially through the use of idioms. So we want to use as much figurative language in our writing as we can to enhance our arguments, furthermore appeal to our audience, and just make our writing more interesting to engage with. So on your screen here, you can see 3 different idioms or similes that enhance our arguments. So we've got, is your hero the black sheep of their family? Black sheep means the most incompetent or unable person of the family. Maybe their family is all very competent, very able people, but they are the black sheep, and they maybe are a bit pressured by their family to be better. The next one we've got is your hero as mad as a hatter? Is your hero so crazy and a little bit mad that they're as mad as a hatter? Maybe they're so passionate or motivated by something that they're as mad as a hatter. Moreover, we've got, is your hero as strong as an ox? So it's good to use different idioms depending on your superpower if your character's superpower was super strength, you might use this one. They're as strong as an ox. Now let's finally look at the timing and length of our response. So 30 minutes is a good amount of time to be able to have 5 minutes to plan and 25 minutes to write. Depending on how much research you want to do before you write, you might even go up to 6 or 7 minutes in planning. You might do as little as 2 or 3 minutes, depending on how much you want to write on your scrap piece of planning before you actually start. Most students, by the end of this, should have been able to write 1 full page by the end. So a full page with no issues and a little bit of planning time as well is what most students were able to do. And remember that some students were able to reach the 2-page mark. At the end of the day, quantity does not matter as much as quality. So it's important to take that planning time and fall somewhere in between the 1 to 2 page mark would be your most ideal situation. Okay, and with that, we have reached the end of our video. EduKingdom wishes you all the best with your selective and writing preparation. We know you will do your best. Good luck.